"Dad, you're becoming a financial burden to this family." Those words stung like nothing I'd ever felt before. After 32 years of working myself to exhaustion, sacrificing vacations, new cars, and even my health to provide for my family, my own son Tyler had the audacity to call me, his father, a financial burden. All because at 58, I'd asked to temporarily move into their guest room after my medical bills had drained my savings account. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Little did Tyler know that I had been quietly paying his mortgage for the past 6 months while he bragged about his impressive financial management skills to his friends. Sometimes life presents the perfect opportunity to teach valuable lessons, and I decided it was time my son learned one. The tension in the Thompson household had been brewing for weeks before those fateful words were spoken. I'm Robert Thompson, a 58-year-old former construction foreman. I'd built a modest but comfortable life in Whispering Pines, Arizona. Nothing extravagant, but I'd always been proud that I could provide for my family without complaint. My wife, Elaine, passed away 4 years ago after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. The medical bills had taken a significant chunk of our savings, but I'd managed to stay afloat. I continued living in our family home, working hard, and looking forward to visits from my son Tyler, his wife Heather, and my 2 grandchildren, Madison and Connor. Tyler had always been ambitious. As a kid, he wanted the latest video games, the trendiest clothes, and later, the fastest car. Unlike his sister Lisa, who understood the value of money from an early age, Tyler seemed to think our family had an unlimited supply. Despite my constant attempts to teach him financial responsibility, the lessons never quite stuck. When Tyler graduated from college, which I had paid for in full, he landed a job at a marketing firm in Phoenix. He met Heather at a company event, and they married within a year. I was happy for them, especially when they purchased their first home in one of Phoenix's upscale neighborhoods. Tyler never missed an opportunity to mention their 5-bedroom house with a pool, their matching BMWs, or their exclusive country club membership. I smiled and nodded, choosing not to remind him of all the financial help he'd received along the way. Everything changed last winter when I fell from a ladder while fixing my roof. The fall resulted in a broken hip and shoulder that required surgery and months of physical therapy. Unable to work, and with my health insurance only covering a portion of the expenses, my savings dwindled rapidly. By spring, I was facing a difficult reality. I couldn't afford to maintain my home anymore. I called Tyler on a Wednesday evening in April to discuss my situation. The conversation started well enough. "Tyler, I need to talk to you about something important." "What's up, Dad?" "Make it quick, though. We're heading to the Millers for dinner in 20 minutes. I explained my financial predicament and the possibility that I might need to sell the family home. "That's probably for the best," Tyler said matter-of-factly. "That house is too big for one person anyway. Buy a condo or something." "The thing is," I continued, "with the housing market as it is, and my medical bills still coming in, I might need a place to stay temporarily while I figure things out." The silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. "You want to move in with us?" Tyler finally asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Just for a few months until I can sell the house and find something affordable. I'd stay in your guest room, and I'd contribute to groceries and utilities, of course." Tyler cleared his throat. "Dad, that's not really feasible right now. Heather's been using the guest room as her home office since she started that freelance gig. Plus, the kids have friends all the time, and you know how crazy it gets here." What Tyler didn't know was that 6 months earlier, when he had called me in a panic about missing his mortgage payment, I had stepped in to help. Tyler had invested heavily in a friend's startup that subsequently failed, leaving him temporarily cash-strapped. He'd sworn me to secrecy, especially from Heather, who he claimed wouldn't understand. I had agreed to cover their mortgage for a few months until he could get back on his feet. Those few months had stretched to 6, and not once had Tyler mentioned repaying me or taking back the responsibility. Meanwhile, on social media, he continued to post about their lavish lifestyle and financial success. "I understand," I said, swallowing my disappointment. "I'll figure something else out." 2 weeks later, necessity forced my hand. With medical bills continuing to arrive and my savings account nearly empty, I called Tyler again. This time, he agreed to let me stay, reluctantly and with numerous conditions. I could sense his irritation when I arrived with my 2 suitcases on a sunny Saturday morning. The guest room, as Tyler had mentioned, was indeed set up as Heather's office, but she graciously offered to move her desk to a corner of their bedroom to accommodate me. My grandchildren seemed genuinely excited to have their grandfather staying with them, even if their parents weren't. The first few days were awkward but manageable. I tried to make myself useful, cooking dinner when Tyler and Heather worked late, helping Madison with her science project, and teaching Connor how to throw a proper curveball in the backyard. I kept my belongings confined to my room and was careful not to disturb the household's routine. By the second week, however, subtle signs of resentment began to surface. Tyler would sigh loudly when he found me watching TV in the living room. Heather started forgetting to include me in dinner plans. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense, culminating in what I now refer to as the incident. It happened on a Thursday evening, exactly 17 days after I had moved in. Tyler arrived home in a foul mood after a difficult day at work. Heather was out with friends, and I had prepared a simple dinner of spaghetti and meatballs for Tyler. And the kids. "Where's Mom?" Tyler asked as he loosened his tie and glanced at the kitchen table. "Book club night," Madison replied without looking up from her phone. "Grandpa made spaghetti." Tyler mumbled something under his breath and disappeared, upstairs, returning 15 minutes later in casual clothes. He served himself a small portion and ate in silence while the kids chattered about their day. After dinner, I was washing dishes when Tyler approached me, his voice low to avoid being overheard by Madison and Connor in the living room. "Dad, we need to discuss how long this arrangement is going to last." "I've listed the house," I replied calmly. "My realtor says it should sell within a month or 2 in this market. I've already started looking at apartments." Tyler ran a hand through, his hair in frustration. "A month or 2? Dad, do you have any idea how stressful this is for us? Heather can barely work with her office crammed into our bedroom. The kids can't have friends over because they're embarrassed about their grandpa living here. And our utilities have gone up since you moved in." I dried my hands on a dish towel, trying to maintain my composure. "I put $200 toward groceries and utilities last week. If that's not enough, I can contribute more." "That's not the point," Tyler snapped, his voice rising slightly. "We built this life for our family, for the 4 of us. We didn't plan on supporting another person." The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me, considering I was still paying their $2,800 monthly mortgage without a word of acknowledgement from Tyler. "I understand," I said quietly. "I'll try to speed up the process." Tyler wasn't finished. "You know, if you had planned better for retirement, saved more, maybe gotten long-term care insurance. I mean, Dad, I hate to say it, but you're becoming a financial burden to this family." There it was, the words that would change everything between us. I stood frozen, the dish towel still in my hands, as Tyler continued his tirade about financial responsibility and planning, the very lessons I had tried to instill in him throughout his life. The same lessons he had apparently forgotten applied to his own situation. That night, I lay awake in the guest bed, Tyler's words echoing in my mind. A financial burden. After everything I had sacrificed for him, the college tuition, the down payment on his first car, the lavish wedding I had funded, and now, the mortgage payments that allowed him to maintain the lifestyle he so proudly flaunted. By morning, I had made a decision. It was time for Tyler to understand the true meaning of financial responsibility. I called my bank and arranged for the automatic mortgage payment scheduled for the following Monday to be canceled. Then I drafted an email to Tyler's mortgage lender explaining that the arrangement for me to make payments on my son's behalf had ended, and all future correspondence should be directed to Tyler Thompson at his email address. Next, I called my daughter Lisa, who lived in Tucson with her husband Mark and their daughter Olivia. Unlike Tyler, Lisa had worked her way through community college, transferred to State University on scholarship, and built her career step by step. She and Mark lived modestly but comfortably in a home they could actually afford. "Of course you can stay with us, Dad," Lisa said without hesitation when I explained my situation. "We've been wanting to finish the basement as a guest suite anyway. This gives us the perfect excuse." 2 days later, I packed my suitcases while Tyler and Heather were at work and the kids were at school. I left a sealed envelope on the kitchen counter addressed to Tyler. Inside was a letter explaining that I would no longer be paying his mortgage, along with copies of the 6 previous payments I had made. I also included a check for $400 to cover my 2-week stay in their guest room, calculated at a generous financial burden rate. As a final touch, I added a handwritten note. "Tyler, you were right. I don't want to be a financial burden to your family. I've arranged to stay with Lisa while I sort out my housing situation. I've also discontinued paying your mortgage, as I'm sure you'll agree that such a financial burden is inappropriate given my current circumstances. Your next payment is due on Monday. Good luck." A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I called a taxi and took one last look at the house before leaving. Part of me felt guilty about the shock Tyler would experience when he realized he needed to come up with $2,800 by Monday. But a larger part of me knew this was a necessary lesson, one that was long overdue. As the taxi pulled away, my phone pinged with a message from Tyler. "Where are the leftover spaghetti? Can't find it in the fridge." I smiled sadly and put my phone away without responding. He would have much bigger concerns than leftover spaghetti very soon. Lisa and Mark welcomed me with open arms when I arrived at their modest 3-bedroom home in Tucson. Their daughter Olivia, now 15, immediately offered to help carry my bags to the partially finished basement. "We've been planning to convert this into a proper guest suite," Lisa explained as we descended the stairs. "There's a bathroom already, and Mark installed that privacy wall last weekend. It's not fancy, but it's perfect," I interrupted, genuinely grateful. The space was simple but clean, with a comfortable-looking queen bed, a small dresser, and even an old armchair positioned near a window that let in afternoon sunlight. "Dad, are you sure you're okay?" Lisa asked after Mark and Olivia had gone upstairs. "You seem, off." I sat heavily on the edge of the bed. "Your brother called me a financial burden." Lisa's expression hardened. "He didn't." I recounted the events of the past few weeks, including the revelation about Tyler's mortgage payments. Lisa listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, and finally, sad resignation. "That sounds like Tyler," she sighed when I finished. "He's always had everything handed to him, and somehow still thinks he's self-made." We were interrupted by my phone ringing. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. It was 6:43 p.m. He would have just arrived home and found my note. "Should I answer it?" I asked Lisa. She shrugged. "It's up to you, Dad." I declined the call and put my phone on silent. Whatever Tyler had to say could wait until tomorrow. I needed time to process everything myself. That night, I slept surprisingly well in my new temporary home. Perhaps it was the relief of no longer walking on eggshells, or maybe it was simply knowing I was with a family who genuinely wanted me there. By morning, I had 7 missed calls from Tyler and a flurry of text messages. "Dad, where are you?" "Call me ASAP." "What is this note supposed to mean?" "You can't just leave like this." "What payments are you talking about?" Are you serious about the mortgage? Dad, call me. I waited until after breakfast to return his call. Lisa gave me an encouraging nod as I stepped out onto the back patio for privacy. Tyler answered on the first ring. Dad, what the hell? Good morning to you too, son, I replied calmly. Where are you? And what's this about mortgage payments? I'm at Lisa's. And I think my note was pretty clear. I've been paying your mortgage for 6 months. As of today, I'm not doing that anymore. There was a long pause before Tyler spoke again, his voice quieter but tight with tension. You can't do that. We had an agreement. Our agreement was for a few months until you got back on your feet. It's been half a year, Tyler. But I'm not ready. I've had unexpected expenses. The kids' summer camp deposits, Heather's car needed work, and we just booked our vacation to Maui. I closed my eyes and counted to 3. Those aren't unexpected expenses, Tyler. Those are luxury choices. Dad, please. His voice took on the wheedling tone I recognized from his childhood when he wanted something expensive. Just cover this month's payment. It's due Monday. I'll take over next month. I promise. No, Tyler. You called me a financial burden, remember? I wouldn't want to burden you further. I didn't mean it like that. I was just stressed from work and… Words have consequences, son. So do actions. You've been living beyond your means, using my money to fund a lifestyle you can't actually afford, all while making me feel unwelcome in your home. It's time for a reality check. Tyler's voice turned cold. So that's it? You're punishing me? Real mature, Dad. I'm not punishing you. I'm stopping enabling you. There's a difference. What am I supposed to tell Heather? She doesn't even know about this arrangement. The truth would be a good start. Tyler groaned. This is going to be a disaster. Only if you've been lying about your finances. Have you been doing that, son? The silence that followed was answer enough. Dad, Tyler finally said, his voice breaking slightly, I can't come up with $2,800 by Monday. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're resourceful when you need to be. After we hung up, I sat on Lisa's back patio for a long time, watching. Hummingbirds dart around the feeder hanging from the pergola. I felt simultaneously terrible and relieved. Terrible for the stress I knew Tyler was experiencing, but relieved to have finally drawn a boundary. Mark joined me later with 2 cups of coffee, handing one to me without a word. We sat in companionable silence until I finally spoke. Am I being too harsh on him? Mark considered this before answering. My dad walked out when I was 8. Never paid a dime of child support, never called on birthdays. That's harsh. Teaching your adult son about financial responsibility? That's called parenting, which apparently doesn't end at 18. I smiled gratefully. Thanks, Mark. Besides, he added, from what Lisa tells me, Tyler's been taking advantage of your generosity for years. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is say no. The weekend passed peacefully. I helped Mark with some yard work, watched a movie with Olivia, and even joined Lisa for her Sunday morning yoga session, an experience my still healing hip protested vigorously. Monday morning arrived, and with it, the mortgage payment deadline. My phone remained silent until nearly noon, when a text from Tyler appeared. Had to take a cash advance on my credit card to make the payment. Hope you're happy. I didn't respond immediately. A cash advance was probably the worst financial decision Tyler could have made with its high interest rate and additional fees. But the lesson wouldn't stick if I rushed in to fix everything. Around 3 p.m., another text arrived. Heather knows everything now. She's not speaking to me. Thanks a lot. This time, I replied, I'm sorry you're going through a difficult time. Would you like to talk about it? His response came quickly. What's there to talk about? You pulled the rug out from under me with no warning. I gave you 6 months and a clear explanation. That's hardly no warning, I texted back. Whatever. Enjoy your revenge. I put my phone down with a sigh. This wasn't about revenge. It was about breaking a destructive pattern, one that was harming both of us in different ways. On Tuesday evening, Lisa returned from work with an odd expression on her face. "Everything okay?" I asked as she set her bag down on the kitchen counter. "Heather called me today," she said, opening the refrigerator and pulling out a bottle of wine. "Want some?" I nodded, suddenly apprehensive. "What did she say?" Lisa poured 2 glasses and handed one to me. "Well, first she yelled, a lot, about how you and Tyler had been lying to her. Then she cried. Then she asked me if they could borrow money." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that Mark and I live on a careful budget that doesn't include bailing out people who spend $900 on golf club memberships." I nearly choked on my wine. "They spend $900 on golf?" "Monthly, apparently," Lisa confirmed with raised eyebrows. "Plus $350 each for their gym memberships, a housekeeper twice a week, meal delivery services. The list goes on." Heather dumped it all out once she got talking. She had no idea they were living so far beyond their means. She thought Tyler's marketing job was paying for everything. "How did she take it when you said no?" Lisa shrugged. "Better than I expected, honestly. She seemed relieved in a way, like she finally understood why they were always stressed about money despite their supposedly good incomes. She asked me how Mark and I manage our finances. And I told her we live by the 50-30-20 rule. 50% for needs, 30 for wants, 20 for savings and debt repayment. She'd never heard of it. I smiled sadly. Neither Tyler nor Heather had been raised with solid financial education. Heather's parents, from what Tyler had told me, were even worse with money than Tyler was. Wednesday morning brought a surprising development. An email notification appeared on my phone from Better Budget, a popular financial planning app. "Tyler Thompson has invited you to view their budget plan." Curious, I opened the app and found that Tyler had created a rudimentary budget and shared it with both me and Heather. It wasn't perfect. The dining out category still seemed wildly optimistic, but it was a start. Later that afternoon, Heather called me directly. "Mr. Thompson? It's Heather." "Robert, please," I reminded her gently. "How are you, Heather?" "Honestly, I'm angry and embarrassed and scared." Her voice was steady despite her words. "Tyler told me everything. About you paying our mortgage, about his failed investment, about lying to me for months. I'm sorry you found out this way." "Don't be, I needed to know." She paused. "I called because I want to apologize for how we treated you when you stayed with us. You deserved better, especially considering how much you've helped us." "Thank you, Heather. That means a lot. I also wanted to let you know that we're making changes. Big ones. I've canceled our country club membership, put our vacation on hold, and listed my car for sale. We're getting a financial advisor to help us sort through this mess." I was genuinely impressed. Those are tough decisions. Not as tough as telling the kids they can't go to that fancy summer camp anymore, she said with a humorless laugh. "Madison actually cried, but they'll survive, and hopefully learn something from this too." "How's Tyler handling all of this?" Heather sighed. "He's coming to terms with it. He's angry, at you, at himself, at the situation. But underneath, that I think he's mostly ashamed. He's always prided himself on being the provider, the successful one. Finding out it was all smoke and mirrors has been hard on his ego." "I never meant to hurt him, Heather. I just couldn't keep enabling behavior that was ultimately going to cause even more pain down the road." "I know that now," she said. "And part of me wishes you'd done this sooner, before we dug ourselves so deep." She hesitated. "There's something else. Tyler doesn't know I'm calling you about this, but would you consider coming to dinner on Sunday, at our house? I think it would be good for everyone, especially the kids. They miss you." The invitation caught me off guard. Are you sure Tyler would be okay with that? Honestly, probably not at first. But he needs to face this, and hiding from you isn't helping. Besides, she added with a touch of newfound firmness in her voice, it's my house too, and I say we need to start rebuilding this family. After some thought, I agreed to the dinner invitation. The days leading up to Sunday were quiet. Tyler didn't call or text again, and I respected his need for space. Meanwhile, I continued my house hunting efforts, viewing a few modest condos in Tucson with Lisa's help. Sunday arrived, and with it, a knot of anxiety in my stomach as Mark drove me the 2 hours from Tucson to Phoenix. He and Lisa had offered to come along for moral support, but I declined. This was something I needed to handle on my own. Call us when you're ready to come home, Lisa said as I got out of the car in front of Tyler's house. And Dad? Remember that whatever happens in there, you did the right thing. I nodded, watching them drive away before turning to face the large stucco house with its perfectly manicured lawn. It looked the same as when I'd left just over a week ago, but somehow, everything had changed. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the front door and rang the bell, unsure of what awaited me on the other side. Connor answered the door, his face lighting up with genuine excitement. Grandpa! He threw his arms around my waist, nearly knocking me off balance. You came back! Of course I did, buddy, I said, ruffling his hair. I promised I'd teach you how to throw that slider, didn't I? Madison appeared in the hallway behind him, her expression more reserved than her brother's but still warm. At 13, she was at that age where showing too much enthusiasm wasn't considered cool. Hey, Grandpa, she said, offering a small wave. Mom's in the kitchen. Dad's somewhere. I followed the children inside, noting subtle changes throughout the house. The fresh flower arrangement that had always adorned the entryway table was gone. Several decorative items had disappeared from the living room shelves. The house seemed less cluttered, more intentional somehow. Heather emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron instead of her usual designer clothes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger, more relaxed despite the circumstances. Robert, you made it, she said, wiping her hands on the apron before giving me a brief hug. Dinner's almost ready. Nothing fancy, just lasagna. Smells wonderful, I said honestly. Can I help with anything? Actually, yes. Could you call Tyler? He's in the garage, been out there all day organizing things. She made air quotes around the last part. I nodded, understanding the subtext. Tyler was hiding, avoiding the confrontation he knew was coming. As I moved toward the door leading to the garage, Heather touched my arm. Be gentle with him, she whispered. His pride's been hurt worse than anything else. The garage was unusually tidy. Tools hung in organized rows on pegboards. Boxes were stacked and labeled. In the corner, Tyler was sorting through golf clubs, placing some in a large plastic bin. Your secret weapon, the 9-iron, I said by way of greeting. Tyler startled, nearly dropping the club in his hands. He straightened, his expression guarded. Dad. Quite the organization project you've got going on here, he shrugged, placing the 9-iron in the bin with the others. Selling some stuff we don't need. Turns out golf clubs hold their value pretty well. His attempt at casual conversation fell flat, tension stretching between us like a rubber band. Pulled too tight. Heather says dinner's almost ready. Right. Tyler closed the bin lid but made no move toward the door. After an awkward pause, he asked, How's Lisa's place? Good. They've been very welcoming. Another silence descended, heavier this time. I waited, giving Tyler space to say whatever he needed to say. Finally, he looked up from the bin, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. I don't want to argue tonight. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A truce, perhaps. Neither do I assured him. Tyler nodded, seemingly relieved. Then let's eat. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant, largely thanks to the children's excited chatter about school and friends. Tyler remained quiet, speaking only when directly addressed, while Heather maintained a steady stream of conversation, smoothing over any awkward silences. I noticed that despite the toned-down meal, lasagna instead of their usual gourmet fare, everyone seemed content, even Tyler. After dessert, homemade brownies that Connor had apparently helped bake, Heather suggested the kids show me the backyard vegetable garden they'd started. As we stood to leave the table, Tyler cleared his throat. "Actually, I'd like to talk to Dad alone for a few minutes, if that's okay." Heather looked surprised but quickly recovered. "Of course. Kids, help me clear the table, then we'll show Grandpa the garden." Once we were alone, Tyler gestured toward his home office off the living room. I followed him inside, noticing immediately that the space had changed dramatically. The sleek glass desk had been replaced by a more modest wooden one. The expensive artwork was gone, leaving behind lighter patches on the painted walls. "Sold. Some things," Tyler said, noticing my gaze. "Turns out I don't need 3 monitors and an ergonomic chair that costs more than my first car." He sat behind the desk, indicating I should take the chair opposite. It felt oddly formal, like a business meeting rather than a conversation between father and son. "I'm not going to apologize for stopping the mortgage payments," I said, deciding to address the elephant in the room directly. "I know," Tyler replied, surprising me. "And I'm not going to pretend I wasn't furious about it." He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, placing it on the desk between us. "But Heather and I had a serious talk, several actually, and we've made some decisions." He opened the folder, revealing a spreadsheet with color-coded columns. "This is our new budget. We've cut our monthly expenses by almost 40%. I leaned forward, genuinely interested. "That's significant." Had to be. We were spending way beyond our means. Tyler flipped to another page. "We're selling Heather's BMW. She's getting a used Honda instead. The country club membership is gone. No more housekeeping service or meal deliveries. Kids are going to public school next year instead of that overpriced private academy." "How are they taking it?" "Better than expected, honestly. Connor doesn't care as long as he can still play soccer. Madison was upset about leaving her friends but came around when we explained she could take horse riding lessons if we made these other changes." Tyler ran a hand through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of his teenage years. "They're more adaptable than we gave them credit for." And Heather? Surprisingly on board with all of it. Once she knew the truth about our finances, she was, don't know, almost relieved? Like she'd been feeling the pressure of maintaining this lifestyle without realizing it. Tyler smiled faintly. "Turns out she hated half of our so-called friends at the country club anyway." I nodded, thinking of Heather's more relaxed appearance. "And you? How are you handling all of this?" Tyler's smile faded. He looked down at his hands, now clasped tightly on the desk. "It's been a reality check. A humbling one. Those can be painful." "Yeah." Tyler was quiet for a moment before continuing. "The thing is, Dad, I've spent years trying to project this image of success. The big house, the luxury cars, the executive lifestyle. I wanted people to look at me and think I had it all figured out." "Including me?" I asked gently. Tyler's eyes met mine, vulnerability replacing his usual confident facade. "Especially you. I wanted you to be proud. To think that all those sacrifices you made for me paid off. Tyler, I was already proud of you. Not because of your possessions or your job title, but because you're my son. Because of the father you are to Connor and Madison, the husband you are to Heather. Even after how I treated you when you needed help? After what I said?" The shame in his voice was palpable. "We all say things we regret sometimes." Tyler shook his head. "It wasn't just what I said. It was everything. Taking your money for months, while acting like it was all my doing, making you feel unwelcome in our home, caring more about appearances than about helping my own father." He pushed back from the desk, standing abruptly. I convinced myself I was entitled to your help, that you owed it to me somehow. I was wrong. I stood as well, moved by his honesty. What matters now is what you've learned from it. I've learned a lot, Tyler said, his voice steadier now. About finances, sure, but more about what really matters. About being honest with my wife and kids. About living within our means instead of trying to impress people who don't actually care about us. He gestured toward the folders on his desk. All of this, the budgeting, the selling off stuff, it's just the beginning. It's a good beginning. Tyler hesitated, then reached for another folder in his desk drawer. There's something else. He handed me the folder, his expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. I've set up a repayment plan for all the money you've given me over the years. The mortgage payments, the investment in my friend's startup that tanked, everything. It'll take time, but I want to pay you back every cent. I opened the folder to find a detailed spreadsheet listing all the financial assistance I'd provided, dating back to Tyler's college years. The total at the bottom was substantial. Far more than I'd realized. Tyler, this isn't necessary. I didn't help you all these years expecting repayment. I know you didn't. That's exactly why I need to do it. His voice was firm. This isn't just about the money, Dad. It's about responsibility, about acknowledging everything you've done for me instead of taking it for granted. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't seen before. Not the overconfident facade he'd maintained for years, nor the shamefaced man from a moment ago, but someone finding his footing, his authentic self. All right, I conceded, but only the recent amounts. The college tuition, the wedding costs, those were gifts. I won't repay them. Tyler looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded instead. We'll discuss the details later. For now, there's something else I want to talk to you about. He walked to the window overlooking the backyard, where Heather and the kids were now visible, tending to newly planted vegetable beds. We have 3 empty bedrooms upstairs, now that we've consolidated. The kids' playroom with their study area. One of them has an attached bathroom. He turned to face me. We'd like you to move in with us, permanently. The offer caught me completely off guard. Tyler, Before you say anything, this isn't out of guilt or obligation, he interjected, quickly. We've thought about it carefully. The kids miss you terribly. Heather's been saying for years that we have too much space for just the 4 of us. And financially, it makes sense for all of us. You wouldn't have to drain your remaining savings on rent, and you could contribute whatever you feel comfortable with toward household expenses. What about your home office? Heather's workspace? We're converting part of the formal dining room, which we never use anyway, into a shared office space. Much more practical. Tyler's expression softened. Dad, I know I have a lot to make up for, and this doesn't fix everything. But I want my kids to grow up with their grandfather around. I want us to be a family, a real one, not just the shiny image of one. I was deeply touched by the offer, yet hesitant. Can I think about it? Of course. Tyler seemed to understand my reservation. Take all the time you need. The room will be there whenever you're ready. A knock at the office door interrupted our conversation. Connor poked his head in, his expression hopeful. Mom says to ask if you're done with your boring grown-up talk yet. We want to show Grandpa our tomato plants. Tyler laughed, a genuine laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from him in years. We're done with the boring part. Right, Dad? Right. I agreed, following them outside where Heather and Madison were kneeling by a row of small plants, garden tools scattered around them. As the evening light bathed the backyard in a golden glow, I watched my son join his family by the garden beds. Tyler knelt beside Madison, gently helping her position a tomato cage around a fragile seedling. His movements were careful, patient, so unlike the brash, image-conscious man he'd been just weeks ago. What do you think, Grandpa? Connor asked. proudly showing me a cucumber plant he'd been tending. Mom says if I take good care of it, we can make our own pickles by August. I think it's wonderful, I replied honestly. And it was. Not just the garden, but everything it represented. A family reconnecting with what mattered. A new beginning, growing from difficult truth. As I helped Connor water his cucumber plant, I thought about Tyler's offer. The idea of living here permanently was both appealing and complicated. Could we truly move past what had happened? Would the lessons learned stick, or would old patterns eventually resurface? Tyler caught my eye from across the garden and offered a small, hopeful smile. In that moment, I realized something important. The greatest gift I could give my son wasn't financial support or even forgiveness, but trust. Trust in his capacity to change, to grow, to become the man I'd always known he could be. The decision about moving in could wait. For now, it was enough to be here with my family, helping something new take root. 3 months passed, bringing with them the sweltering heat of an Arizona summer and significant changes for our family. I had decided to give Tyler's offer serious consideration, but first I needed time. Time to heal, time to observe if the changes in Tyler's lifestyle and attitude would stick, and time to sell my house and sort through decades of memories. Lisa and Mark continued to host me in their basement, which they had fully converted into a comfortable apartment with a private entrance. Living with them had given me a chance to bond with my granddaughter Olivia in ways I never had before. At 15, she was at that interesting age, caught between childhood and adulthood, full of questions about the world and her place in it. "Grandpa, did you always know what you wanted to do with your life?" she asked one evening as we sat on the back patio, escaping the air-conditioned chill of the house to enjoy the warm desert night. "Not at all," I admitted. "When I was your age, I thought I'd be a baseball player," she laughed. "You? No way." "I wasn't half bad," I protested with a smile. "But then life happened. I met your grandmother in college, fell in love, and suddenly my priorities changed. Construction paid well, and it was steady work. Baseball was a dream, but your grandmother, she was real." Olivia considered this, twirling a strand of hair around her finger thoughtfully. "Mom says Uncle Tyler is different now, that something happened between you two that changed him." News traveled fast in our family, though I appreciated that Lisa had apparently been discreet about the details. "Your uncle and I had a disagreement about finances. Sometimes people need to learn lessons the hard way. Like when Mom took away my phone for a month after I ran up all those in-app purchases?" I chuckled. "Something like that, but on a much larger scale. She says he's selling their house." Olivia's tone was curious rather than judgmental. "That's right. They're downsizing to something more reasonable." In fact, Tyler and Heather had listed their house just 2 weeks after our reconciliation dinner. The Phoenix real estate market was hot, and they'd received multiple offers within days, eventually accepting one that allowed them a 60-day closing period to find a new home. Their decision had come as a surprise to me. When Tyler called to share the news, I had assumed they were simply looking for a house with a more manageable mortgage. "It's not just about the mortgage, Dad," Tyler had explained. "It's about the whole lifestyle. The big house comes with big expectations, expensive furniture to fill it, costly maintenance, higher utility bills, property taxes. We're ready to let all that go." True to his word, Tyler had been following through on his financial overhaul. He'd sold his BMW and now drove a practical sedan. The designer clothes were being replaced with more affordable options as needed. The kids were enrolled in public school for the fall, and both were actually excited about the change. Connor because their new district had a better soccer program, and Madison because her best friend from dance class would be in the same school. Most surprisingly, Tyler had taken a second job teaching evening marketing classes at a local community college. "It's not about the money," he'd told me when I expressed concern about his work-life balance. Well, not entirely. It's about remembering where I came from, about staying grounded. Plus, I actually enjoy teaching. My house in Whispering Pines had sold quickly as well, though for less than I'd hoped. Still, between that and my modest retirement savings, I had enough to live comfortably, if frugally, for the foreseeable future. "Have you decided about moving in with Uncle Tyler?" Olivia asked, pulling me back to our conversation on Lisa's patio. "Not yet. It's a big decision." "I'd miss having you here," she admitted, then quickly added, "But I get why you might want to go. Connor and Madison are younger. They need their grandpa, too." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "No matter where I live, you'll always be my granddaughter. Nothing changes that." The following weekend, Lisa and Mark drove me to Phoenix to visit Tyler's family and see the new house they'd purchased. It was a significant downsize, a 4-bedroom ranch-style home in an established neighborhood with mature trees and reasonable HOA fees. "It's about half the square footage of the old place," Heather explained as she gave us the tour, "and a third of the maintenance." The house was charming, with a large open kitchen that flowed into a comfortable living area. The backyard was smaller but featured well-established fruit trees and plenty of space for an expanded vegetable garden. The previous owners were an older couple who had lived here for 20 years, Tyler said, showing us around the master bedroom. "Everything's in great condition, just needs some cosmetic updates." "And the 4th bedroom has its own bathroom," Heather added, giving me a meaningful look. "Perfect for a certain father-in-law, if he's interested." The room in question was modest but pleasant, with a large window overlooking the backyard citrus trees. Someone, probably Heather, had placed a vase of fresh flowers on the dresser, and the bedspread matched the curtains in a way that suggested thought rather than extravagance. "No pressure," Tyler assured me, though I could see the hope in his eyes. "The offer stands, whether you decide to move in next week or next year." Later, as the adults gathered in the kitchen while the kids explored the yard, Lisa pulled me aside. "You're considering it, aren't you?" she asked quietly. "I am," I admitted. "Does that bother you?" She shook her head. "Not at all. We've loved having you with us, but I can see the changes in Tyler. This isn't just a temporary fix for him. He's genuinely transforming how he thinks about money, about family, about what matters." She smiled. "Besides, it would be good for Connor and Madison to have you around more. And for Tyler, too. And you and Mark would finally have your basement back," I teased. "There is that," she laughed. "Though Olivia will miss your chess matches. We could still do those. Maybe not every week, but regularly." Our conversation was interrupted by Madison calling from the backyard. "Grandpa, come see. We found a nest of baby birds in the orange tree." The rest of the day passed pleasantly, with the entire family working together to start unpacking boxes and arranging furniture. Tyler and Mark assembled bookshelves while Lisa and Heather organized the kitchen. Connor, Madison, and Olivia mapped out plans for the backyard garden, debating the merits of various vegetables with the seriousness of professional farmers. I moved between groups, helping where I could, but mostly observing, appreciating the easy camaraderie, the laughter, the lack of tension that had once characterized family gatherings. There was something special about this house, I realized. Unlike Tyler's previous showcase home, this one already felt lived in, welcoming, real. As evening approached, we gathered around the patio table for a simple barbecue dinner. Tyler manned the grill with unexpected skill, turning out perfectly cooked burgers while Heather laid out a spread of homemade sides. "Who knew you could cook?" I teased Tyler as he flipped a burger with a flourish. "YouTube University," he replied, with a grin. "Turns out cooking your own food saves a fortune compared to eating out all the time, and it's actually fun." After dinner, as Mark and Lisa prepared to drive back to Tucson with Olivia, I made my decision. "I think I'll stay," I announced. "Just for the night," I clarified, seeing Tyler's startled expression. To help with the unpacking, if that's okay? Of course it's okay, Heather said warmly. We'd love the help. The guest room, your room, is all set up with fresh sheets. Lisa caught my eye, a knowing smile playing at her lips. We'll bring more of your things next weekend then? That would be great, I agreed. As Lisa's family drove away, Tyler approached me, his expression hesitant. Are you testing the waters, or something like that? I acknowledged, though I'm leaning toward making it permanent. If you're still sure about the offer. More sure than ever, Tyler said firmly. The kids will be thrilled. Later that night, after helping Tyler assemble Madison's bed frame and unpack kitchen essentials, I settled into the guest room, my potential future room. Through the window, I could see the silhouettes of the citrus trees against the night sky, a gentle breeze making their leaves whisper together. From down the hall came the muffled sounds of Connor and Madison bickering good-naturedly over bathroom time, with Heather's voice occasionally intervening. Normal family sounds. Real. Life. A soft knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I called. Tyler entered, carrying 2 mugs of tea. Thought you might want this before bed. Unpacking is thirsty work. Thanks. I accepted the mug, noting with amusement that it was one of the ordinary ceramic ones from the kitchen, not the expensive matching set I'd seen in his previous house. Tyler sat on the edge of the desk chair, hands wrapped around his own mug. So, I wanted to talk to you about something. Sounds serious, I remarked, taking a sip of the perfectly brewed tea. It is, actually. Tyler set his mug down and pulled an envelope from his pocket. This is for you. I took the envelope, finding a check inside. For exactly $2,800, the amount of one mortgage payment on his previous house. It's the first installment, Tyler explained. I've set up an automatic transfer from my account to yours. Same amount, same day every month until everything's paid back. Tyler, you don't have to— Yes, I do, he interrupted firmly. We've already discussed this. It's not negotiable. His expression softened. It's not just about the money, Dad. It's about keeping my word, about showing you and myself that I've changed. I nodded, recognizing the determination in his eyes. All right, thank you. There's something else. Tyler retrieved his mug, staring into it as if it contained the words he was searching for. I never properly apologized for what I said that day, about you being a financial burden. Water under the bridge, I assured him. No, it's not. Not for me. Tyler looked up, his eyes meeting mine directly. Those words, they were cruel and untrue. You have never been a burden, financial or otherwise. You've been the opposite, a support, a safety net. A father who gave everything so his kids could have opportunities he never had. The rawness in his voice caught me off guard. In all our recent interactions, we'd danced around the specific incident that had triggered this whole chain of events, focusing instead on the positive changes that had resulted. The truth is, Tyler continued, I was projecting. I was the financial burden. To myself, to Heather, to our future. Living beyond our means, taking your money while pretending I was self-sufficient. When you needed help, it forced me to confront that reality, and I lashed out instead of looking inward. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Dad. Truly sorry. I forgive you, I said simply. And I'm proud of you, Tyler. Not for the fancy house or the impressive job title, but for this. For having the courage to change, to admit mistakes, to rebuild on a stronger foundation. For a moment I saw the shadow of the little boy he'd once been, eager for approval, sensitive beneath the bravado. Then he smiled, the mature man once again. We're closing on the old house next week, he said, changing the subject slightly. The real estate agent thinks we made a smart move, getting out while the market's hot. We're actually walking away with enough to have a decent emergency fund for the first time ever. That's great news. Yeah. Tyler hesitated, then added, I was thinking, if you do decide to move in with us, maybe we could use some of that money to convert the garage into a workshop for you. I remember how much you loved woodworking before your accident. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched me deeply. I'd like that. Good. Tyler stood, collecting my now empty mug along with his own. Sleep on it. The moving in, I mean. No. Rush. But as the door closed behind him, I knew I'd already made my decision. Not because I needed a place to stay or because it made financial sense, though both were true. But because somewhere in this painful, messy journey, my son and I had found something we'd been missing for years: genuine connection, mutual respect, and the kind of love that sees flaws clearly, yet chooses to stay anyway. The next morning over. Breakfast, I told Tyler and Heather I'd accept their offer to move in. Madison squealed with delight and immediately began planning where Grandpa's chair should go in the living room. Connor asked if this meant I could help him with his math homework every night instead of just during visits. Even Tyler's eyes grew suspiciously bright as he pretended great interest in his coffee mug. It's settled then, Heather said, squeezing my hand. Welcome home, Robert. Home. Not the house I'd lived in for decades, filled with memories of raising my children with Elaine. Not Lisa's basement apartment. Comfortable though it had been. But here, in this modest house with the citrus trees and a fourth bedroom that would soon be mine. Home, with a son who had called me a financial burden and then discovered the true cost of independence. Home, with a family that had learned the difference between luxury and value. As I looked around the table at their smiling faces, I realized that sometimes the most valuable lessons come disguised as painful moments. And sometimes, when we stand firm in difficult truths, we give the people we love their best chance to grow. Tyler caught my eye across the table and raised his coffee mug in a subtle toast. I lifted my own in response, a silent acknowledgement of our journey, the hurt we'd moved through, the healing we'd found, and the future we would build together. One mortgage payment at a time. 1 year later. The evening sun cast long shadows across the backyard as I put the finishing touches on Connor's science project, a working model of a wind turbine that had occupied my workshop for the past week. The garage conversion had been completed 6 months ago, transforming the space into a woodworker's haven with proper ventilation, lighting, and enough tools to make any craftsman proud. Grandpa! Mom says dinner in 15 minutes, Madison called. From the back door, her long hair now styled in a fashionable bob that made her look startlingly grown up. Tell her I'll be right in. Just need to clean up, I replied, carefully setting the turbine aside to dry. Living with Tyler's family this past year had brought changes I never could have anticipated. The most surprising wasn't how well we all adjusted to sharing space, though that had gone more smoothly than expected, but rather how the family dynamic had evolved, becoming more balanced, more intentional. I gathered my tools and wiped down the workbench, reflecting on the transformation. Tyler had kept his word about the repayment plan, transferring money to my account each month without fail. I'd initially tried to refuse it, but eventually recognized that this commitment was as much for his own healing as for my financial benefit. So I accepted the payments but quietly deposited most of them into college funds for Connor, Madison, and Olivia. Tyler didn't need to know that detail yet. As I washed up in the small bathroom adjacent to the workshop, I caught my reflection in the mirror. At 59, my hair had fully surrendered to gray, and the lines around my eyes had deepened. Yet there was something youthful in my expression that hadn't been there before, a contentment, perhaps even joy, that came from purpose and connection. The house was filled with the aroma of Heather's cooking as I entered through the back door. In the kitchen, Madison was setting the table while Connor argued with Heather about the merits of having dessert before dinner. It's more efficient, Mom. Nice try, Professor, Heather laughed, ruffling his hair. But ice cream still comes after vegetables in this house. She spotted me in the doorway. Perfect timing, Robert. Tyler just called. He's on his way home from the college. Tyler's evening teaching position had evolved into a more substantial role at the community college. 3 months ago, he'd been offered a part-time administrative position in addition to his teaching duties, allowing him to reduce his hours at the marketing firm. The pay was significantly less, but as Tyler had explained, the work is more meaningful, and our expenses are under control now. Quality of life matters more than the paycheck. It was a statement that would have been unimaginable coming from the Tyler of old. The front door opened, and Tyler entered, carrying a stack of papers and looking tired but satisfied. Sorry I'm late. Department meeting ran long. He sat down, his materials, and gave Heather a quick kiss. How was your day? I asked, helping Connor place napkins beside each plate. Good, actually. We finalized the new financial literacy program I've been developing. The college approved it as an elective for the fall semester. Tyler's eyes lit up as he described the curriculum he'd created, a practical approach to personal finance, targeted at first-generation college students and returning adult learners. Tyler's become quite the advocate for financial education, Heather explained to me with obvious pride. Last month, the local high school asked him to give a talk to seniors about avoiding debt traps after graduation, just trying to help others. Avoid my mistakes, Tyler said, a hint of his old self-consciousness showing through. Speaking of financial matters, I said as we sat down to dinner, I received an interesting call today from Greg Wilson. Tyler paused, fork halfway to his mouth. My old boss? What did he want? He's heard about your financial literacy program at the college. Apparently his company is looking to sponsor some community outreach initiatives as part of their corporate responsibility efforts. He wanted to know if you'd be interested in developing something for them. Tyler looked stunned. Seriously? But I left the firm over 6 months ago. Your reputation has evidently traveled. Sometimes the world has a way of recognizing authentic change. Later that evening, after the kids had gone to bed, the 3 adults sat on the back patio. The Arizona night was pleasantly cool, with stars scattered across the dark sky like diamonds on velvet. Heather had brewed a pot of herbal tea, and we sipped it in comfortable silence for a while. I've been thinking, Tyler said eventually, setting down his mug, about everything that's happened since Dad moved in with us the first time. Heather and I exchanged glances. We rarely discussed that painful period directly, though its impact remained evident in our daily lives. What specifically? Heather asked. How close we came to losing everything that actually matters. Tyler leaned forward, elbows on knees, his expression thoughtful. Not just financially, though that was part of it, but our integrity, our connection, as a family, our sense of what's truly important. I nodded, understanding completely. It's easy to get caught up in appearances. That's just it, Tyler continued. I was so focused on looking successful that I forgot to actually be successful, in the ways that count. Being a good father, a good husband, a good son. He glanced at me apologetically. It took a pretty dramatic wake-up call to see what was happening. We both needed that wake-up call, Heather added, reaching for Tyler's hand. I was just as caught up in it as you were, comparing our lives to people on social media, always wanting more, newer, bigger. The kids seem happier now, I observed, more grounded. It was true. Connor and Madison had adapted to their new school and neighborhood with remarkable resilience. Connor had discovered a passion for soccer and science that their previous, more status-conscious lifestyle hadn't allowed time for. Madison had found genuine friends who liked her for herself, not for her address or her parents' cars. At 64, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride watching my son address the crowd. Tyler's Financial Foundations program had grown from a single elective class to a comprehensive department offering courses, community workshops, and personalized coaching. The program had received state recognition and was being replicated at community colleges across Arizona. Beside me sat Heather, elegant in a simple sundress, her hair now styled in a practical bob, much like Madison's had been years ago. She squeezed my hand as Tyler continued his speech, her eyes shining with pride. On my other side, Connor, now 17 and nearly as tall as his father, recorded the speech on his phone for the family archive. Madison couldn't attend. At 19, she was finishing her freshman year at Northern Arizona University, where she'd earned a partial scholarship to study environmental science. She'd chosen to live in the dorms despite the university being only 2 hours away, embracing independence with the same thoughtful approach she applied to everything. Financial health isn't just about dollars and cents, Tyler was saying from the podium. It's about aligning your resources with your values, about understanding the difference between wants and needs, about building security not to hoard wealth but to have the freedom to make choices based on purpose rather than panic. Smiled, recognizing those phrases from countless dinner table conversations over the years. Tyler hadn't just changed his own financial habits. He'd developed a philosophy that guided his teaching and, more importantly, his life. As Tyler concluded his speech and the graduates moved their tassels from right to left, I reflected on how far we'd all come since that painful confrontation in Tyler's kitchen 5 years ago. One callous remark, "You're a financial burden," had triggered a cascade of changes that ultimately transformed not just our relationship, but the trajectory of both our lives. After the ceremony, our family gathered at a local restaurant. Nothing fancy, but with excellent food and a relaxed atmosphere that suited us perfectly. Lisa and Mark had driven up from Tucson with Olivia, now a college student herself, studying computer science at the University of Arizona. "Uncle Tyler, your speech was amazing," Olivia said as we settled around the table. "I made all my roommates take your online financial literacy course last semester, by the way. Emma says you saved her from taking out another predatory loan." Tyler laughed. "Glad to hear it. How's the work-study position going?" "Great. The library is actually paying me to do something I'd probably do for free: organize information systems. And living on campus with a meal plan keeps my expenses super predictable." Our family conversations now flowed naturally around financial topics without embarrassment or pretense. Money wasn't a taboo subject or a scorecard for success, but simply a practical tool to be managed wisely. Even Connor, the youngest, contributed, his perspective on saving from his part-time job at a local science museum. "Dad, tell them about the award," Heather prompted Tyler as our meals arrived. Tyler looked slightly embarrassed. "It's not a big deal, just a community impact recognition from the State Financial Education Board." "Not a big deal?" Lisa protested. "Tyler, your program has reached over 5,000 students and community members. That's huge." "Well, it's not just me," Tyler deflected. "The whole team at the college has been incredible. And honestly, I learned the most important lessons from Dad." All eyes turned to me, and I shook my head with a chuckle. "I hardly consider causing a family financial crisis to be educational." "That's exactly what it was, though," Tyler insisted. "You showed me the consequences of my actions instead of sheltering me from them. And you demonstrated what real financial values look like. Not accumulating stuff or impressing others, but creating security and opportunities for the people you love." The conversation shifted to other topics as we enjoyed our meal: Connor's college applications, Madison's summer research position, Olivia's internship prospects, simple family matters discussed without the undercurrent of financial anxiety that had once characterized our gatherings. After lunch, as we walked through the park adjacent to the restaurant, Tyler fell into step beside me, letting the others move ahead. "You know what I realized recently, Dad?" he said quietly. "The last payment on my debt to you is next month." I had almost forgotten about the repayment plan. The monthly deposits had become such a background feature of our relationship that I rarely thought about them anymore. "So they are," I acknowledged. Though, as you know, most of that money has been going straight into your children's college funds. Tyler stopped walking, looking at me with surprise. You never told me that. It seemed like the right thing to do, continuing the investment in the future, as your mother would say. Tyler was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Thank you, he finally said. Not just for that, but for everything. For having the courage to teach me a difficult lesson when it would have been easier to just keep enabling me. It wasn't easy, I admitted. Leaving that note, knowing how it would impact you and Heather, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it was exactly what I needed. Tyler gestured toward his family walking ahead of us, Heather laughing at something Connor was saying, both of them relaxed and genuinely happy. Look at what we gained because of it. Indeed, the transformation went far beyond finances. Tyler and Heather's marriage, once strained by secret financial arrangements and keeping up appearances, had evolved into a genuine partnership built on honesty and shared values. The children had developed a healthy relationship with money from watching their parents' example. And I had found a new purpose in my later years, not as a financial safety net, but as a mentor and active participant in family life. When we returned home that evening, I retreated to my room, no longer just a guest space, but truly mine, decorated with photos, books, and mementos that reflected my life and interests. From my window, I could see the vegetable garden, now a sophisticated operation that provided much of our produce year-round. Beyond it stood the workshop where I taught Connor and occasionally Madison woodworking skills, creating everything from practical household items to artistic pieces we sometimes sold at local craft fairs. A knock at my door interrupted my reflections. Come in, I called. Tyler entered carrying a folder. Got a minute, Dad? Always. He sat in the armchair across from mine, opening the folder to reveal what looked like financial calculations. I've been thinking about what comes next, after the repayment plan is complete. You don't need to replace it with anything, I assured him. That chapter will be closed. That's not what I mean. Tyler handed me the papers. Heather and I have been discussing this for a while. We'd like to establish a formal scholarship at the college, the Elaine Thompson Financial Empowerment Scholarship. I looked over the documents, touched by the use of Elaine's name. That's a wonderful idea. We want to start small but sustainable. 2 scholarships annually for students who've completed the financial literacy program and demonstrate need. The focus would be on first-generation college students or those returning to education mid-career. The thoughtfulness of the concept was exactly what I would have expected from the man Tyler had become. Not a flashy donation with his name prominently displayed, but a practical investment in others who were working to better their situations. Your mother would be honored, I said, my voice thick with emotion. There's more. Tyler turned to another page in the folder. We'd like you to serve on the selection committee. Your experience and perspective would be invaluable. I'd be happy to, I agreed immediately. Good. Tyler looked relieved, though there was still something tentative in his expression. There's one other thing, more personal. Oh? You know that Connor will be heading to college next year, assuming he gets into one of his target schools. I nodded. Connor was an excellent student with a passion for engineering that reminded me of myself at his age. And Madison's already. And Flagstaff, Tyler continued. With both kids gone, this house will feel pretty empty. He paused. Heather and I have been talking about downsizing again. Not immediately, but within the next couple of years. That makes sense, I said, though I felt a pang at the thought of leaving the home where we had all rebuilt our lives together. The thing is, Dad, there's a faculty housing development being planned near the college. Smaller homes designed for active seniors and educators with energy-efficient features and communal garden spaces. Tyler's eyes met mine. We're considering applying for one of those homes. and we're hoping you'll still want to live with us." The offer caught me by surprise. I had assumed that once the children were grown, Tyler and Heather would naturally want their privacy again. "Are you sure? You and Heather might appreciate having your own space after all these years." "We've discussed it extensively," Tyler assured me. "The truth is, these past 5 years with you as part of our daily household have been wonderful for all of us. You're not a guest or an obligation, Dad. You're essential to our family." There was no hint of the old Tyler in these words, no underlying resentment, no sense of duty, just genuine appreciation and connection. "Besides," he added with a smile, "who's going to help me maintain that fancy new community garden they're planning? Or keep me company when Heather's at her art classes? Or explain to Connor how to fix things over video chat when he's living in a dorm?" I laughed, deeply moved by his sincerity. "When you put it that way, how could I refuse?" As summer progressed, into fall, our family continued its evolution. Madison came home for a few weeks between her summer research project and the fall semester, bringing stories of field studies and new friends. Connor focused intensely on college applications, his bedroom walls covered with posters of engineering schools and robotics competitions. Heather had discovered a talent for pottery and was selling pieces at local art fairs, the modest income going into a fund for a creative studio space in their future home. On a warm evening in late September, as Tyler and I sat on the patio enjoying the cooler air that came with sunset, he received a text that made him smile broadly. "What is it?" I asked. "Remember Jennifer Wilson from my first financial literacy class? Single mom, 3 kids, working full-time while taking classes?" I nodded. Tyler often shared stories about his students, particularly those who faced significant challenges. She just closed on her first home. Modest, but in a good school district. For her kids. Tyler showed me the photo on his phone. A beaming woman standing in front of a small bungalow, 3 children, and an elderly woman I assumed was her mother clustered around her. She credits the financial literacy program with giving her the knowledge and confidence to make it happen. "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for this woman I'd never met but whose journey I'd heard about over dinner conversations. "This is why I do what I do," Tyler said, his expression reflective. "Not for the awards or recognition, but for moments like this. For families stabilizing themselves, breaking cycles of financial insecurity, creating opportunities for the next generation." In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity how Tyler had transformed his own painful lesson into a gift for others. The burden I had placed on him, that single mortgage payment that had disrupted his comfortable illusions, had become the foundation for hundreds of families finding their financial footing. "Your mother was right," I said softly. "About what?" "About children being investments in the future. Not just our future as parents, but in the world that will exist long after we're gone." I gestured to his phone with the image of the proud new homeowner. "Your influence extends far beyond our family now. Those children will grow up in a stable home because their mother took your class." Tyler was quiet for a moment, absorbing this perspective. "I never thought of it that way. That my financial mistake, and your response to it, could ultimately help so many other families." Life has a way of recycling our hardest lessons into wisdom, if we let it, I observed. As the desert stars emerged above us, Tyler and I continued, talking about his students, about Connor's college prospects, about the faculty housing development taking shape near the campus. We spoke as equals, as partners in the ongoing project of family, as 2 men who had journeyed from painful conflict to profound connection. The mortgage had long since been paid, both literally and metaphorically. What remained was something far more valuable, a legacy of financial wisdom cascading through generations, touching lives we would never meet. From burden to blessing, from confrontation to contribution, from a single difficult moment of truth to a lifetime of authentic prosperity. Sometimes the most valuable lessons begin with the heaviest burdens. And sometimes, when we have the courage to carry them, they transform into unexpected gifts, not just for ourselves, but for all whose lives we touch. 10 years later. The retirement community's community center buzzed with activity as families gathered for the annual Thompson Financial Literacy Foundation dinner. At 74, I moved more slowly now, my trusty cane supporting me as I made my way through the crowd, greeting familiar faces and meeting new ones. Mr. Thompson, so wonderful to see you, called Maria Gonzalez, one of the foundation's first scholarship recipients and now a successful financial advisor. I've been hoping to introduce you to my daughter, Sophia. She's starting at Mesa Community College this fall and plans to take your son's advanced course. I smiled warmly at the young woman beside Maria, seeing in her eyes the same determination that had characterized her mother when she first entered our program 15 years ago. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sophia. Your mother was one of our brightest students. She talks about the program all the time, Sophia replied. It changed our whole family's relationship with money. This was the refrain I heard repeatedly throughout the evening, how the financial literacy program Tyler had built from his own painful lesson had created ripples of change across generations and communities. What had begun as a single elective, class had evolved into a comprehensive foundation offering courses, scholarships, community workshops, and policy advocacy at the state level. The sound of a spoon tapping against glass drew everyone's attention to the front of the room, where Madison stood at the podium. At 29, my granddaughter had grown into a poised, confident woman with her father's charisma and her mother's practical wisdom. After completing her environmental science degree, she'd surprised us all by pursuing an MBA with a focus on sustainable business practices. Now she served as the foundation's executive director, having taken over day-to-day operations when Tyler stepped back to focus on curriculum development and teaching. Welcome, everyone, to our 15th annual Thompson Financial Literacy Foundation dinner, Madison began. For those new to our community, this event celebrates not just the accomplishments of our scholarship recipients and program graduates, but the journey that brought us here, a journey that began with a simple but profound family lesson. My gaze drifted to Tyler, seated at the front table beside Heather. At 68, he had the distinguished look of a longtime educator, his formerly dark hair now completely silver. The marketing executive with something to prove had long ago been replaced by a man secure in his purpose and values. Heather, elegant in her 70s, had become a respected artist whose ceramic works were displayed in galleries throughout the Southwest. Before we present this year's scholarship awards, Madison continued, I'd like to invite my father, Tyler Thompson, to share a few words about our foundation's origins. Tyler approached the podium, embracing his daughter before turning to address the crowd. Thank you all for being here tonight. As many of you know, the Thompson Financial Literacy Foundation began in a rather unusual way, with a financial mistake, a difficult lesson, and a single mortgage payment. Soft laughter rippled through the audience. The story of how Tyler had called me a financial burden and how I had responded by making him pay his own mortgage had become something of a legend. Within the foundation community, a parable about financial responsibility and its far-reaching consequences. My father taught me that financial health isn't just about money, Tyler continued. It's about honesty, integrity, and aligning your resources with your true values. It's about understanding that what we do with our money affects not just our own lives, but the lives of everyone connected to us. As Tyler spoke, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey our family had traveled over the past 2 decades. After Tyler and Heather downsized to the faculty housing development, our living arrangement had continued for another 7 years. Connor had graduated from college with an engineering degree and now worked for a renewable energy company in Colorado, married with twin daughters. Madison had remained in Arizona, her work with the foundation complemented by environmental consulting that took her around the country. I had moved to this retirement community 5 years ago when my health began to decline, requiring more specialized care than Tyler and Heather could provide at home. But the separation was geographical only. My son visited 3 times a week without fail, and the rest of the family maintained a constant presence in my life through visits, video calls, and the ongoing work of the foundation. The foundation wasn't part of any grand plan, Tyler was saying. It began simply as a way to honor my mother, Elaine Thompson, who understood long before I did that financial decisions are really about values. When we established the first 2 scholarships, we never imagined how it would grow. The growth had indeed been remarkable. From those initial 2 scholarships, the foundation now supported 30 students annually, operated financial literacy programs in schools throughout Arizona, and had developed a nationally recognized curriculum adopted by community colleges across the country. None of this would have been possible without my father, Robert Thompson, Tyler said, his eyes finding mine in the crowd. Dad, would you please join me up here? I hadn't been expecting this. With Madison's help, I made my way to the podium, where Tyler embraced me with the easy affection that now characterized our relationship. My father isn't just the inspiration behind our foundation, Tyler told the audience. He's been its conscience, its wisdom, and its heart for 15 years. Every scholarship recipient knows Mr. Thompson from the selection committee. Every curriculum revision has benefited from his insight, and every policy proposal has been strengthened by his perspective. I felt a surge of emotion as the crowd applauded. This recognition wasn't something I had sought or expected, but it touched me deeply. Tonight, Tyler continued, we're announcing a new initiative in honor of my father's 75th birthday next month. The Robert Thompson Emergency Fund will provide immediate financial assistance to students facing unexpected hardships that might otherwise force them to abandon their education. This fund recognizes that sometimes, even with careful planning, life presents challenges that require a helping hand. The irony wasn't lost on me. That my name would now be attached to a fund designed to provide the very kind of assistance I had once withheld from Tyler to teach him a necessary lesson. But there was a profound difference. This fund would help students who were actively working to improve their financial literacy and stability, not enable dependency or financial irresponsibility. After the formal presentations and dinner, the event transitioned to a more relaxed gathering. Connor and his family had flown in from Colorado for the occasion, and my great-granddaughters, Emma and Lily, aged 8, entertained everyone with their energetic descriptions of their latest science project. Grandpa Robert helped us design it over video chat, Emma explained proudly to anyone who would listen. He taught us how to make a windmill that actually generates electricity, just like the one you helped me with for my science fair, Dad, Connor said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Some skills skip a generation, I think. I watched as my family mingled with scholarship recipients, educators, and community partners. Lisa and Mark, now in their 70s, had driven up from Tucson as they did every year for this event. Olivia, their daughter, now worked in Silicon Valley, but had flown in with her partner for the weekend. Quite a legacy, don't you think? Lisa said, joining me at my table with a cup of tea. When I think about that summer you stayed with us after Tyler's moment of clarity, I never imagined it would lead to all this. Life takes unexpected turns, I agreed. Some of the most painful moments can lead to the greatest growth. I remember how worried you were about moving in with Tyler's family, Lisa reminisced. You kept asking me if I thought he'd really changed, if it was the right decision. I was terrified of enabling old patterns, I admitted. But sometimes you have to trust that people can truly transform when they face difficult truths. Our conversation was interrupted by Jennifer Wilson, now the Foundation's Community Outreach Director and one of Tyler's first students. Mr. Thompson, we have a surprise for you. She led me to a side room where a large object stood covered with a cloth. The Foundation's board members, my family, and several former scholarship recipients gathered around. We wanted to present this Privately, before sharing it with the wider community next month on your birthday, Jennifer explained. She nodded to Tyler and Madison, who stepped forward to remove the cloth. Beneath it stood a beautifully crafted wooden podium, its front panel carved with an intricate design that incorporated elements meaningful to our family's story. A house, books, plants growing from coins, and intertwined hands representing connection and support. This will be installed in the new lecture hall at the community college's Financial Education Center, Madison explained. Every speaker who addresses students there will do so from the Robert Thompson podium, a reminder that wisdom often comes from someone who cares enough to speak difficult truths. I ran my hand over the smooth wood, recognizing Connor's craftsmanship in the joinery. It's beautiful. There's more, Tyler said, pressing a hidden button that caused a small drawer to slide out from the side of the podium. Inside lay a leather-bound journal. This is a reproduction of Mom's diary, specifically, the page about investments in the future. It will be permanently housed in the podium, a private reminder to us of where this all began. The thoughtfulness of the gift moved me deeply. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Dad, Tyler replied. Your actions have spoken clearly enough over the years. Later that evening, as the event wound down, I found myself sitting quietly with Tyler on the community center's patio, watching the desert sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. I've been thinking, Tyler said after a comfortable silence, about that moment, the one that changed everything. When will you call me a financial burden? I asked with the gentle teasing that our relationship now allowed. Yes, he acknowledged with a rueful smile. I've been wondering lately what would have happened if you had responded differently. If you had just continued paying my mortgage, or if you had lectured me but still bailed me out. I considered this alternate history. You might have learned eventually, through some other hardship. Tyler shook his head. I'm not so sure. I was deeply committed to the illusion I'd created, the successful executive, the provider, the self-made man. It took something dramatic to crack that facade. The mortgage payment was just a catalyst, I observed. The real change came from within you, your willingness to face the truth and do the difficult work of transformation. Perhaps, Tyler conceded, but catalysts matter. The right intervention at the right moment. He gestured toward the community center where scholarship recipients were saying their goodbyes, their faces bright with possibility and purpose. Look what can grow from it. Indeed, the fruit of that painful moment had been abundant beyond anything I could have imagined, not just in Tyler's personal growth or our healed relationship, but in the hundreds of lives touched by the financial literacy programs, the scholarships, the community workshops, and the policy changes the foundation had helped enact. You know, I said thoughtfully, when I left that note with the mortgage statement, I was only thinking about teaching you one lesson. I never dreamed it would lead to you teaching thousands. That's the thing about financial lessons, Tyler replied with a smile. The interest compounds over time. As darkness settled over the desert, my son and I sat together in companionable silence, two men at peace with our shared history. The journey from financial burden to this moment had been neither short nor easy, but its value was beyond calculation. In the end, the most important currency wasn't dollars or cents, but the wisdom passed from one generation to the next. Wisdom, born of mistakes and forgiveness, of difficult truths and the courage to face them, of understanding that true wealth lies not in what we possess, but in what we help others to become. The burden I had placed on my son's shoulders that day had been transformed into a gift he had shared with countless others. And in that transformation lay the greatest return on investment a father could hope for, a legacy not of financial wealth, but of values that would endure long after both of us were gone. As the stars emerged in the desert sky, I thought of Elaine and wished she could see what had grown from the seed she had recognized so long ago. Our investment in the future, still paying dividends, still changing lives, and still teaching the world that sometimes the heaviest burdens become our greatest blessings. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.